And so we'll just start. I've got a bunch of images here. Helena, you're from this town, right? From Harlem, is that the one?
Yeah.
Is that the right one? Okay.
Where did you find the balance
Is it right here?
Oh, there.
Yeah. And that's, our part of New York City is named after that. We just dropped one A off.
Yeah.
Because the Dutch initially founded New York. I'm going to wheel this around. Go ahead and grab a seat, and we'll just we'll have a conversation. So what you guys want to do is I've got images here, and we'll just have a conversation. Let me just give you a little background, and then we'll ask Glenn some questions. The little background: before the war, before the Second World War, the Netherlands hadn't been involved in combat since the early 1800s, since the time of Napoleon. So as you can see on the map here, the Netherlands were neutral during the First World War. And then we know, let me just forward this up a little bit, we know that the Germans then, as part of their blitzkrieg in the spring of 1940, invade very rapidly the Netherlands, Belgium, Norway, France, Luxembourg, and we know how that story goes. Very rapid defeat of all of those countries, including France, which falls in June of 1940. So let's just pause here and what year were you born?
I was born in October 38.
Born October 1938 in Harlem? In Holland, okay. And here we'll use, Holland and the Netherlands aren't quite, they are basically the same thing. I guess there's a little bit of a distinction, but we use them interchangeably here. So born in 1938. What did your dad do?
My dad was a CPA accountant.
So he was an accountant. Okay. And how many brothers and sisters did
I
you have?
had 2 brothers and 1 sister.
2 brothers and 1 sister. How old were your brothers and sisters?
My brother was 12 and a half when I was born, and my other brother was 9, and my sister was 5 and a half.
Okay. So I imagine your older brothers have more of a memory of the war.
Yes.
Your older brother. What are your earliest memories of, well, let me put it this way. When you think of your earliest memories of childhood, and of course they're very, at least for me, very hazy, right? But your earliest memories of childhood, are those memories associated with the war?
Yes.
Or with German occupation? What are some of the memories that you have?
I remember looking out the window and seeing the soldiers, the Nazis, walking in the street, and they were always parading. It wasn't too bad the first 2 years. There was food, you could still buy food. But you began to see the Jewish people. There were a lot of Jewish people in Holland, and they had to wear the yellow star on their arms. And I remember seeing that, and I'm asking my father, why are they wearing that? I remember seeing them collecting at the headquarters in Highland. And then the next thing, we didn't see them anymore.
Then they were gone.
Yeah, and a lot of the stores that were owned by Jewish people, they're gone. Suddenly they're gone. You didn't know where they went. A lot of the Dutch people, even in my street where I grew up, hid Jewish people.
They hid them.
Yeah, I did not know where they were. My parents wouldn't tell me. Being so little, they were afraid I might say something. But I knew that they were hiding.
Let me, I got some photos here. We'll go back to these things. And so you're
Yeah,
pointing to this, and so what does that say in Dutch?
Jood, that means Jew.
So throughout we've discussed this, throughout the German Empire, the Nazi Empire, by May of 42, Jews, so this would be in France, in Belgium, and of course in the East, in Germany itself, they have to wear the star. And you remember seeing
Very much so. The men had the band. Women might have those stuff on their clothes.
Do you remember what I mean, of course, you're very young. I mean, when the Germans invade, you're only 2, so you're not aware of what's going on. By the time this comes around, you know, you're 4 or 5, something like
Yeah,
that.
in the later years, 43, 44, I began, actually, I heard a lot of airplanes flying over, the enemy airplanes, as well as allies.
Mhm.
And a lot, in fact, out of the window of my bedroom, we saw an airplane. I don't know if it was an enemy or an ally, fell down on a neighbor's house and it exploded.
Oh, is that right?
That
As part of the fighting.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
so
even the
this-
plane lost control and went down and the whole
Oh.
house went up. So these are things, you know, they make an impression on you, so
Mhm.
even if I was little.
Do you remember, you know, from your own experience or from conversations with others, you know, your family members, what were relations like between, you know, Dutch kids and Jewish kids? I mean, who are also Dutch, right, but they're living
Yes.
in the Netherlands. What were relations like before this time, and then how did this change things? You know,
They've
so this would be
always
before the
accepted-
Jews get
yeah,
transported.
The Dutch are very, like I said, we were supposed to be neutral, that even during the Second World War. The Jewish children were all very accepted, they were in the schools, and even after the war, the Dutch people liked the Jewish people and began to try to find ways to hide them. So there was never any racial feelings or anything like that.
Yeah. Now, in this period in between, you know, so the Jews have to start wearing the stars, but they don't begin to be transported immediately. There's a little period of
Right.
time where they have the stars, and then months later, the
Right.
transportations
But they
begin.
were put kind of in an area all together. They began to move them out of their homes, and then they put them in a campsite. They didn't know what was going to happen to them, to the victim, to themselves. So, yeah, and then afterwards we heard that they were put on trains to their camps.
Now, did your parents, I mean, I imagine with 4 children, you've got a full house anyway. Did they knew others who did hide Jews during the war?
Oh, yes, Mom and Dad did. My parents did take some people into the house, 2 elderly ladies. They were not Jewish. The reason was we were already on food stamps that were handed out to the people. And also,
I'm sorry, the food stamps is because the Germans are controlling everything, and so
Yes.
you have to have the stamps in order to get the food?
right,
Okay.
also heat, you know, to heat your furnace. And so my dad and mother, they thought the best thing would be to take these 2 older ladies in. They were by themselves in their homes.
Mhm.
They could share their stamps for fuel
Mhm.
and share it with us, and their foods also. So there were now 8 in the house.
Oh.
2 elderly ladies, I remember very well. One lady was a diabetic, and the other lady was an old lady. I thought she was a witch. She was not very friendly. Either the house.
Even though somebody was helping her?
Yeah, no, she was a eccentric little lady. She was a thief. But she was not very nice. I remember that. And
What was the perception of the Germans? Because ethnically, linguistically, culturally, Germans and Dutch are pretty close, aren't they? Or are they not? Oh, yeah. No,
well, you
they're
don't
not.
say that to a Dutch person.
No. But is that a post-World War II reaction? I mean, in 1935,
I don't
would
know
Dutch
what
be
happened
saying?
before I was born.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know,
So
so
you're just
I
speaking
just
from your own
know the
experience.
mood afterwards. We didn't like the Germans. As I grew up and came to the United States and learned more about it, we don't like the Nazis. We
Yeah,
don't like the
you make
Germans.
a
We don't like
distinction.
the Nazis. We realized later on, hey, there's a distinction. The German people also suffered.
Yeah.
So at that time, you know, you didn't, even now, when people say, well, you look like you're German, and I say, I don't think so.
Well, because this is what Hitler is saying, right? I mean, Hitler's saying, look, the Dutch are like us, they're Germanic, you know, we're pretty much the same, so.
Well,
But the Dutch
good
people are not
thing
into
is,
this.
With Hitler, he wasn't even blonde or blue
Yeah, I
eyed.
know, right? You got it.
that surprised me when I heard it later. He wanted a generation of blonde, blue-eyed people.
With a lot of children, he didn't have any either.
Yeah.
What was before things, you said early on, things were, fairly stable. I mean, it doesn't take long for the Germans to, to conquer the Netherlands, and things settle down, and so then there's this stability for a couple of years, and things are pretty calm. From what you've heard, or from what you recollect, what was the relationship like between Dutch folks and German soldiers who would just be in the markets or patrolling in the streets?
Like I said, I really don't know. I was too little for that. Some Dutch girls liked to flirt with the German boys. But as things got really bad, it was just had no contact with them at all.
Yeah. Now, is there still, do you go to the Netherlands from time to
The
time?
last time I went was in 1995, so it's been a while.
So at least, in the decades after the war, is there still, I don't know if animosity is the right word, but
I
is there
think
still
your
a...
generation, probably not having gone through the war, I don't think there is that feeling anymore.
Right.
It's more my generation.
And it's not so much fear, because Germany is not a country we would fear militarily anymore, but it's just a sense of resentment over what happened.
And actually, the last time I went in 1995, there were still, the American Army was still there, located to protect us from I don't know what. But they took them out about 1998. There's no more.
Really? There were still an American
Yeah,
base
there were
there?
still Americans
I
there.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
You mentioned folks who hid Jews. Now here's just a photo of some of the Jews being escorted out. Do the homes, the style of the homes look familiar
Yeah,
there?
yeah, oh yes, very much so.
Yeah. And so here we have the Germans leading them out, and the figure, I imagine you'll get different estimates here, but the number I have is of 140. Living in the country, just about 35,000 survived with 140,000. There were some who were able to hide through the war, but then others who were discovered, and I think of probably all of the Jews living in the Netherlands who was discovered, probably this girl is the best known. Yeah. Originally from Germany, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
but migrated to the Netherlands to get away from the Nazis, but
Right.
then here come the Nazis invading again.
The reason, I want to interject it, the reason that Holland didn't become state neutral is because Germany asked Holland, we want to shoot England from the beaches from Holland, because it's right across. And Holland said, no, you can't do that. You cannot use our country to do that. And so Germany said, okay.
We'll just invade. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it, right?
And I'm proud of my country for doing that.
For refusing.
Because they're trying to protect other people.
But you're saying the German motivation for taking the Netherlands was to be able to attack England, yeah, right across the
exactly.
channel.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any recollections of Jewish children that at the time you probably didn't even know were Jewish, but after the war?
No. Oh, after the war, I've seen them, but,
Okay. But there's no one that folks in your family talk about, oh yeah, that kid over there,
no.
he ended up being transported. So you knew that the Jews were being rounded up though?
Yes.
And you have a memory of seeing that?
Yeah.
Seeing that happen? What is that, what is that memory? I mean, what do you have in your mind when you
I didn't
see
understand
that?
it. At that time, I did not understand that. I saw the yellow bands, but I didn't understand what was going on.
What was going on? But you see the guys in the uniforms with the guns and
Yeah,
people
and
being...
to this day, when I saw that picture, it just,
This one?
yeah,
That's
it just turns me off to see it. Because even the way they walked in the parade, that goose step,
Yeah,
just turns me off.
yeah, so you remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Could you read that for us? I imagine it's a bit, I imagine most of us have heard of Anne Frank's diary, right? It's this very famous diary of a girl who I believe while she's in her hiding place is keeping this diary.
Right.
but she's eventually discovered and dies in one of the concentration camps, or one of the death camps, just a couple months before the war ends. So I hope that this isn't scandalous, I don't know what it says, but anyway, I imagine this is a little line from her diary, or from a letter or something. Could you translate it for us?
Yes, so this is a picture, like photo, this is a picture. That's the way I would like to look, always, altijd is always. I always hope to look like that. Then, oh, she said, because of this picture, the way I look, I like this picture, then I might have a chance to go to Hollywood.
Oh, so I see Hollywood misspelled there, which is one
Yes.
out here.
But right now, or at this time, I don't see any way that I will look any different. That's all she says.
So expressing a desire to go to Hollywood. Can you make out what that date is there? It says 1940.
1946, I think.
Well, that can't be right.
Or 48, maybe.
That can't be right, yeah. She died in
No,
45.
48, yeah. So
Yeah, she died. It looks like a 6 to me, but that doesn't make sense. Yeah. And is that her signature there? Maybe it should.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's her, that last digit, yeah, it can't be earlier than 44. Is when she, mid-44, I believe, is when she's found out. So anyway, it's interesting that even in that context, she's thinking about, you know, you have these young teenager occupations, which is one of the things you find in the diary. And then you have, you know, it's interesting that probably of all of the Jews who hid and who were discovered, the best known is this girl from the Netherlands. And of all of the people who helped hide the Jews, so far as I know, probably the best known, there are a lot of them, but probably the best known also comes from the Netherlands, and that would be Corrie ten Boom and her family there. And I believe Corrie's in the middle there.
Is Betsy or yeah?
And then they lived in the same town you were
I was
in.
born.
Yeah. And you said your family knew them?
My
Your
father
family
knew of the watch store. My father knew where the watch store was, yeah. He sold clocks and watches, their father.
What do you know about the Ten Boom family? I know not from personal experience, you're too young, but from what you learned after the war.
Yes, they're very Christian people, and they began to feel that they needed to help the Jewish people. And one man came in because he had already knew that he was going to be looked after by the Nazis. They took him out of his home, he had nowhere to go. And the Jewish people began to leave their watches at Mr. Ten Boom's watch store. Didn't pick them up. He fixed them, but they didn't pick them up because they realized the Nazis would take it away from them anyway. So that's how the first men came to their home. And Mr. Ten Boom, we call it Ten Boom.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Boom means tree.
Oh, okay.
But the Ten Boom family, he felt that he had to help them. And so in the room of Corrie, her bedroom, is where they began to break down things, and they got some men to come in secretly, and they put cement in the old-fashioned, what do you call it, those clocks that, you know, used to pendulum, with a box.
Yeah, the grandfather clock?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
grandfather clock. They would open it up and put cement in there and smuggle it into the house to build a hiding place for the Jews.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. There was not too much room. They all had to duck underneath and hide in their bedroom like it was like a closet, like a closet.
What are, I'm sure, you know, since the war, you know, talking with your siblings, you know, I imagine your memories from the war have come up. Can you relate to us some of the memories that, for example, your brothers have shared? I'm sure your older brother had a lot of memories.
This was, you know, I know this is a Christian school, and we were Christians too. And this to us is a miracle. And I'm going to show you a picture here. All right, this is my family, and this is just a copy of it. This is my older brother John, my brother Rudolph, my sister, and myself. And what happened is that the Germans began, I have to say, I should say Nazis, I'm sorry. The Nazis started making an announcement that everybody in Highland had to open their doors, had to keep it open. They couldn't lock it. Because a soldier would come, walk into the house without knocking, and look for my brother, or for any man, because they needed to send young men to Germany to work in their ammunition factories. And a lot of men, we saw our neighbors, they disappeared, we didn't know what happened to them. So my mom and dad were very concerned, but this time John was, I was 4, he was 12, he was 16, I was 17. And so in home there is a closet, in your closet, and then you lift up the ceiling, and then you have a place to hide. And we lived in kind of like a townhouse. They all had the same roof. And so when John got up in the eaves of the house, or the roof, we saw many of the young men hiding there. And mother would come and bring him some food during the day.
But the Germans didn't know about these?
They did not know about that. Because it looked like, it looked like a ceiling, but like here where the lights is, that may have been just part of the ceiling, but it was part of the closet. So anyway, John was there for days. I did not know it. Mother did not tell me because she thought if the man comes up to soldier, out of fear, I would tell him.
But the rule was that the doors had to be left unlocked so that at any moment a German soldier could come in and check. And then the background would be, of course, with Germany facing what it's facing against the Russians, and then Italy, and then Western Europe. They've got to have all of their men fighting as many as possible, and so to have the labor in industry, you've got to bring these young guys from the empire.
Right.
That's the part of the story, yeah.
So that roof connection, is that similar to in C.S. Lewis's first book, The Magician's Nephew, when there's that roof attic area that the main character goes back and forth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the miracle was Daddy had this picture, and he knew if a soldier would come up, he would figure out John was at the age to take him to Germany. My brother Rudolph, you can see he was very blonde, and mother would put a scarf over him, and he looked like a little girl with bangs. Take care of that. But anyway, John was there for several days, and I was in my bedroom with my sister, and mother said, if you hear the soldier come up, she said, you sing. Start singing some Christian songs. Well, I heard him come in, and I heard those, up to this day, I can hear those boots stepping up, because we lived on the second floor. And we heard that coming up. And Daddy had prayed, because he says, I don't want to lie. So Daddy hid this picture, that's the reason I brought it. Daddy hid this picture so that he could not see, because we had an older brother. And so Daddy started asking this Nazi man, or actually German soldier, he said, how's your family? This man was in his 40s, and that made a big difference. And the man started to cry. He says, I don't know where my family is, I don't know where my wife is, or my children. And so Daddy kept on asking him questions. And so finally he learned about it. I hate this war. I don't want to be in this war. He says, I was drafted and I have to do this. And he says, I don't want to do this job. He says, I will go through your house and check if there's anybody here. But he says, I don't like to do it. So to us it was an answer to prayer. We had a very kind soldier who also had his own grievance. And so he says, thank you very much. He was very polite, thank you very much. There's nothing here that tells us anything, so he left. And,
That's interesting, because early in the semester we read letters by an older German soldier. He was in the East, and what he was dealing with was much harder than this soldier would be in the Netherlands. But he was very much questioning, as he's writing his letters, we can see that he's more and more questioning the wars. So that kind of
The
challenge.
younger Nazis, the
Yeah.
young ones were the ones that were really all out to be a Hitler Youth.
They were
They
all
called
for
it Hitler Youth, yeah.
I just want to ask the question, because this question has come up, not in this class, but in a different one. But you know, the famous, you know, the question about at what point is it okay to say something that's not technically true for the purpose of saving a life?
Right.
And so that, you know, that if you have Jews in your house and the Nazi says, do you have Jews in your
Right,
house?
right.
Do you say, you know, do you say yes or do you say no in service to saving a life? Just, your dad didn't have to face that issue here, but suppose, I'm just curious, suppose he had been
I mean, they prayed
asked,
about it, you know, beforehand, and God worked it out.
what do you think your dad would have done if the soldier had asked him a direct question? Do you have a
I think my
16-year-old
daddy was
boy?
a very strict Christian man, and I think he would have said yes. I think, but I don't know, at the moment, he could have changed his mind.
Do you remember that being a topic of conversation, your parents talking about that? You know, if we are asked, what should we do? You don't remember that
I don't
conversation?
remember
I
that.
imagine it took place.
But you know, Mom and Dad did some, for instance, my brother John also, they put a scarf on him because he would do some errands for Mother. Then she felt guilty for doing that. So that gives you a little idea how my parents felt about not being true,
Yeah.
you know. But anyway, and then my brother Rudolph, he was sent, and during the time when there was no food, he was sent to the field to pick like root in the Bible, to pick the leftover peas. It was a pea farmer.
Let's go there. Are you referring to the hunger winter?
Oh, yes. Now
Oh.
that I remember very
Well,
well.
tell the students about it. This is a theme that hasn't come up in the class. This is something that I think is unique to the Netherlands in the latter part of the war.
Right.
What was the hunger winter and what do
It
you
was
remember about
horrible. It was horrible. We had many days, there was nothing in the food in the house. We asked Mom, please, we're hungry. And she said, sweetheart, I have nothing. Oh, look at the closet again in the kitchen. There's nothing.
it?
And my brother Rudolph, because of the hunger, he hung himself. He did not die. Mother found him in time, but we have a little attic, and he had hung himself. She called the doctor, she took him down, and he said because of malnutrition, his brain wasn't working anymore, and he wanted to end his life. So, and then I remember this very well. We told John, do you know any food where it is? And he said, I saw that Mom had a red cabbage. So he went to the kitchen and he brought us all a leaf of a cabbage to his sister, my other brother, and I. It tasted like cake, I remember. It was so delicious. And then we went back to the kitchen and the cabbage we ate the whole cabbage raw, the red cabbage. And then Mother came into the kitchen to make some cabbage soup. And she says, John, have you seen the cabbage? What happened to it? And we all hung our heads that we had eaten. And Mother felt so bad, she didn't punish us, you know. She in fact began to cry.
Do you remember what the cause of the hunger was?
Because
Yeah, did you know at the time?
it went, well, but I found out later,
Yeah.
the Nazis used it for their soldiers. All the food that was used was for their soldiers.
Yeah, so the students can look, we're looking in really the winter of 44, 45. So D-Day's taking place, the Germans are getting pressed, you know, the Italian campaign is almost over, southern France has been attacked, the Russians are pressing from the east, the Allies are pressing from Belgium and northern France. And so the Germans are taking the food supplies for their own purposes, and one of the consequences is this. I think I've got another photo here.
Yeah.
And then also, at least from what I've read, it's also part of this is there's more resistance among the Dutch as the Allies are invading. The resistance movement arises, and so one of the ways the Germans try to deal with that also is to cut off the food supply. But the figure that I saw is about 22,000 died from this famine.
My grandfather died because of the hunger. Yeah, I didn't get to see, they wouldn't let me go. There was no more wood. Wood was used to burn, you know, the house. So he did not have a coffin, and I asked Mother what happened. I remember faintly my grandfather, and she says, I don't want you to go to the funeral. I want you to remember him the way he was, but They told me he looked like a skeleton, like, you know, this, and he was buried in a carton box, because there was no room available.
And I've heard that children born to women who went through this, that there have been some physical problems. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Then I read something in Holland. My sister has had a lot of trouble with her teeth because not enough food and milk. There was no milk. I remember mother said she was very worried because I was so little and I needed milk. We lived on sugar beets in the beginning. It was mostly sugar beets, and to this day I won't eat a beet. And you know, that sweet beet, you know, sugar beets are sweet. Some people ate 2 adults, and my mother would not let us eat adults. She thought it might poison us, so we did not eat adults. We ate them. We tried to find nuts from the trees, and I think they were beech nuts, which made us very sick. I remember that part. We would try to go, well, we couldn't do that anymore. In the dunes, there were a lot of rose hips growing, which has high vitamin C. But when the Germans came, they put bombs, so we were not even able to go to the beaches. It was too dangerous there.
Oh, to get fish or something.
Yeah, right.
So your grandfather's death is associated with this, your
Right.
brother's
My brother-
malnutrition contributed
And
to
like
it.
I said, my sister's teeth, and I have bone problem myself. I have osteoporosis, and they say that the people who lived during that time, they all are having some physical problems at this
They
time.
go back to this period of malnutrition.
And that's funny because
Starvation.
later on you begin to eat better, that you pick it up, but evidently the growing years are really important.
What other memories, what other sort of images do you have in your mind associated with this time of famine? I mean, you guys are out looking for things. I imagine a lot of other people are doing the same thing.
Right.
Just people are out scavenging.
But that's right. As long as no bombs were falling, because the sirens would go on, and then they had ditches. There were ditches made so that you could jump in the ditch. I remember the V1 flying over.
The missile that the Germans
No,
were
that was
sending.
horrible. I was sleeping, I guess I was in that time,
Mhm.
and I ran to mom and dad, scared to death. I knew what it was. My brother, after he hung himself, the doctor told him that he needed to have special nutrition. Well, where are we going to get that? So he called the Red Cross, and the Red Cross came to deliver some basic food, but only Rudolph could eat that.
Mhm.
We were not allowed to touch that.
Mhm.
Another time, we were so hungry, and my older brother tells me that I suggested, well, let's pray to Jesus and ask him to send us some food. I don't remember that. And they said that after the prayer, I went to the front window of the house to see how Jesus was going to answer the prayer. And in half an hour, the Red Cross came. So we thought, well, at least Rudolph will have food. But they brought extra food for the family. We had some basic food, you know, some potatoes and things like that, carrots maybe.
So the Red Cross is in operation there?
Yeah.
See, this is a theme that's come up in the class. The weird thing about the Nazis is that they're such a murderous regime, obviously, and on the one side you see that this is part of that, but then at the same time the Red Cross is in operation there
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
So in some respects they'll commit atrocities, on the other hand they'll abide by certain rules of war and
Yes,
so on.
that's
The Red
really
Cross is
right.
there.
Yeah, we had a military base not too far from our home. And I remember, I must have been 6, when we came by there, I don't know if they were Americans or Canadians, they would hand us a stick of gum. Boy, that was really something.
Now these weren't the Germans then?
No,
No.
no.
Well, that gets us to the next theme then. Here's a photo of,
Oh, the food drop.
yeah, does this,
Yeah.
do you remember
I
this?
that.
Oh, well, tell
yes.
us about it then.
Yes. Behind our house there is a big field that is, tulips grow there and in the summer strawberries. Anyway, yeah, I remember seeing that. That was very impressive. All these parachutes with packages.
And these are Allied planes, dropping food.
Yes, and then the government told us we are not allowed to go to the field. There was going to be order. The government would take care of it, and every family would get their food. In fact, we got some English, they call them sea biscuits, huge biscuits from England. And my daddy, bless his heart, you know, as parents, they would give the children first. And so Daddy really suffered a lot, but when that food drop came, he ate, and that's like sick. You know, when you are an empty stomach, you start out slow again. You shouldn't go after many months. So Daddy got very, very sick. We thought we were going to lose him. His stomach just blew up, and thank the Lord that didn't happen.
But you remember seeing something like this with
yes.
the food falling from the
Yeah, we
plane?
were so excited. I remember seeing all these parachutes coming down. Yeah.
So when the Americans, but then for the Netherlands and mainly the Canadians, but when they came through, it was real liberation, right?
Oh my, we were happy. Yeah.
Well, let me show some images related to that now. Does that seem true to you?
Yeah. We had a Canadian soldier come to our house. That was just after the war. And I thought he lived with us. Later on, my brother said, see, I have a different perspective than my older brother did. Because he wrote a book. And, but I haven't gotten it yet. Anyway, I thought he lived with us.
The
I
Canadian?
found out he was after my sister.
Oh. The Canadian ones?
Yeah.
Oh.
He came to visit my home, hoping to see my sister. But the Canadians came to help us reestablish and start all over again.
Yeah.
That's after the war. Yeah.
So this, but you, given your experience in the hunger winter, and then the food drops and all that, you think this painting isn't just,
No, I think
it tells the true story?
yeah.
I think it's important for you guys to know, you know, that this isn't just sort of feel-good propaganda, but that it is
Yeah, what
saying
makes me-
something real about the
What
war.
makes me upset when I hear certain people now today say, oh, that was just noise. There was no such thing with the war. And if you only knew what we've been through,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah. It's very-
Well,
Was Rudolph your older brother? Or
He was my second brother.
Okay, so the.
He was
younger
9 years older than I was.
brother.
John and Rudolph were the two first brothers, and then my sister.
now, as Helena says, mainly the Canadians were the ones mostly responsible for liberating most of the Netherlands. And the Americans and the British were involved, but it was primarily the Canadians.
Yeah.
And so in Canadian classes up in Canada, you do a World War II class in Canada, you're going to hear more about the Netherlands than we've done here. Let me just go through some images here. So these would be kids your age, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you remember the celebrations?
I
or-
remember the celebration. After the war, on May 5, we started to see the street lights started to come on. And that shows you there was no light before. And I told my mother, Mommy, come and look at all the moons. I thought they were moons. I didn't know. That's all I knew was a moon. And then I was in the parade in Harlem, and I carried, it's not a flag, I carried a little something else. I don't know what it was. But it shows you as a child how hatred can come in your body. They had a doll of Hitler on the ground because they were going to burn, and it was made out of straw. And I asked somebody, who's that? And they told me, that's Hitler. So they told me what I did. I went and stoned them. I had bad Hitler, bad Hitler. And then they burned
They
it.
burned them,
Yeah. So,
yeah. Are you in this picture? You recognize yourself in there?
but anyway, that's,
Same thing.
same thing.
See anybody you recognize? Yeah, if you recognize anybody, I
No.
suppose.
But I'll see
Canadians, once again.
the car, the truck. When I was in the first grade, that was shortly afterwards, we went on a field trip, and we went in one of those trucks.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of these things raise memories for you.
Yeah, sure
Plumbing around the tank.
do. Yeah.
You've got some Canadians in the background there, you can't really see them, but a couple Dutch gals there.
Yeah, we think a lot, well, I hope the people today do, but we've always considered the Americans and the Canadians highly. We've always been, thankful for them to come.
Up in Canada, this is still a big deal, so one of their coins, on the back of one of their coins, is a commemoration of the liberation of the Netherlands. And then, I want to come here. If you go to Canada's capital city, Ottawa, I don't know exactly when it is, I think it's in the spring, they have a tulip festival. I lived there for a few years, and I'm not much into flowers, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But this goes back to the Second World War, as I've indicated up here. And so Canada and the Netherlands have an ongoing, there's an ongoing cultural, historical memory.
Queen Juliana, back then Princess, she stayed in the wartime in Canada. And her
Right.
mother, Wilhelmina, went to England.
Oh, okay. So Juliana, I didn't know that Juliana actually stayed in Canada.
She lived in Christmas and she had small children. We had to protect them.
Yeah. That's interesting. So this, in both countries, certainly in Canada, there's a historical
I don't know
memory.
that, but they still have that there.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Lisa? And then over to them.
Concerning what you're talking about the Jews, did they look any different? Like, when you saw Jewish children, did you think, did they look just like Dutch people?
It didn't enter my mind. Now it would, and now I would know in those days. Because the majority of the Dutch people are blonde and blue-eyed, but there's also dark and brown eyes. So they fit in. I just want to show you all something that is a big memory. My daddy gave this to me. When there was no light in Holland during the wartime, I remember as a kid, Daddy, I gotta go to the bathroom at night. And here I hear him coming up the stairs to our bedroom, and this is what they use.
Oh,
I don't know what they call them, but you can see how well it's been used. It was black.
that goes back to the war era,
Yeah,
and it still works.
It still works.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's very heavy. That's amazing.
And that's how I heard Daddy coming up here on hill.
Yeah, that's wow, interesting. Ben.
Yeah, and I think it was September, October of 1944, there was Operation Market Garden. It was like the Americans' attempt to take back Holland. Do you have much memory of that? And was there I would assume there's a huge disappointment when that didn't work.
Well, I don't quite understand that. Southern Holland was liberated first. Have you all seen
And that's where Market Garden comes from.
the bridge too
Bridge too
far?
far is where
Yeah,
it's at,
that's
yeah.
where America lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
Northern Holland was around May that we got the freedom, and that's all I.
So right at the end of the war.
Yeah.
But you do have memories of seeing combat
Oh, the planes, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
and the anti-aircraft fire going on.
Right. Yeah, I remember. In fact, I went to Mexico, and they're having problems in Mexico. We were sleeping there in Monterrey, and I went bang, bang, bang. I told my husband, "Honey, let's go home." It just brings back those memories.
Yeah.
So, the streets there shooting. So that's something that stays with you.
Wow. Well, we really appreciate you coming here. Thank you for you. And thank you very much for coming. Why don't you stay there, and the students will greet you on the way out. So we'll catch you guys on Monday.